Memories. When we look back on happy moments, are we more than just reminiscing? How remembering the past can make your present more vibrant. And 5,600 new cases of cancer will be diagnosed today. What you need to know to stay healthy or care for someone who isn't. It's all on Inside Today with Deborah Norville.
Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Today, where we go inside topics that can make a meaningful difference in your life. First up today, memories. Oscar Wilde is quoted as saying, "Memory is a diary we all carry about with us." And right about now, a lot of people are focusing on their memories. In the last few weeks, 3.9 million students graduated from high school. That's the biggest class ever. A lot of people are planning their summer vacations and thinking about their previous vacations as they do. And this year, 3 out of every 5 people will change jobs. I'm one of them. Just a few weeks ago, I anchored my last Inside Edition, the TV show I've hosted for over 30 years. It was my choice to move on, and as I did so, I was filled with nothing but gratitude and a lot of memories. And I found that as I relived some of those past memories, my mood lifted. Instead of being sad that it was ending, I was happy that it had happened. It turns out I was onto something. Everybody, and thank you for joining us. We're broadcasting from China, from Vatican City.
When I joined Inside Edition in March of 1995, I never thought I'd be there more than 30 years later. And I certainly couldn't have imagined the amazing things I'd get to do.
I have to watch that? Ice or no ice, ma'am?
Write and record a song and then make a music video of it? Check. Dive on one of the U.S. Navy's most sophisticated nuclear submarines? Check.
And the Tomahawk missile is this silver one down here?
This is the Tomahawk missile right here.
These are the most powerful ones you've got on the ship.
Yeah, they have the most explosive capability, most accurate.
Even sell peanuts at the ballpark. They are treasured memories, and as I relived them, I found that instead of being melancholy it was ending, my mood brightened. I was more cheerful. Looking back at my past, it seemed, was making my present more vibrant. Is there anything to that? In much the same way my curiosity about gratitude led me to research that resulted in my book, Thank You Power, I dove into the peer-reviewed research I could find about memory retrieval and its potential impact. And that led me to Dr. Maurizio Delgado of Rutgers University, who's been looking at what happens in the brain when we remember past pleasant experiences.
Some of the research we have done has found that just the experience of recalling or reliving those old memories, those positive memories, it just elicits a great feeling, puts us in a positive mood, and it tends to be the reason why we like to reminisce. We like to feel nostalgic. When we see old friends, we like to think about old stories and such. It just brings back the old memories. And some of those memories brings back the old feelings that we had when we were having those memories.
And your research has looked at what having those positive feelings can do in return to experiencing those feelings, some of the effects that those positive feelings can elicit.
Yeah, so we have looked at this simple idea where we just bring people to the lab. We ask them to think about their memories. We give them prompts and cues. So we might say, think about a memory about a birthday party or a vacation that you might like. And they will write things down. They will give us some ideas about the memories, such as how did it make you feel back then? How rich was that memory? How many people were in that memory, right? How close were you to them? So we get some details about that as well. And then we ask them to come back a couple of days later, and we do this again in the MRI scanner, so we can actually see the neural basis of recalling those memories. I don't know if you've ever been in an MRI scanner. It's not the most pleasant thing in the world.
It's scary as all get out.
Yeah, but this is actually one of the first experiments that we've ever done where people come out of the scanner and they're like, yeah, I feel good. I like this experience.
And that boost is so desirable. Delgado's research has found people would rather relive those happy memories than get money.
We're giving them an experiment where they had a chance to recall some of their positive memories, or they could recall different memories but get money for those memories. But they were willing to forego any monetary incentives in order to recall their memories, which is pretty interesting because they could just do whatever they wanted, but they would be very true to their memories. And also we would ask them, how much would you pay to relive those memories? And they would be willing to pay more to be able to relive those memories, especially the ones with the close others, right? Which to us suggests that there is certainly an intrinsic value to these positive memories, that there are memories, there are things that we can't take it away.
But besides being precious, those old memories may also be protective. Dr. Delgado told me about one very turbulent recent flight and the nervous passenger seated beside it.
That person took out their phone, started looking at pictures of their kids and their pets and stuff, and I saw a little bit of a smile, and it was calming her down. And I feel that's one of the applications of this strategy, both reminders of our positive past, of what we have and what we like to experience and what we're grateful for. Those are the things that kind of can help us, at least in the short term, calm down on the stress a little bit, which then would allow us to maybe now deal with something that's long-term stress in a more productive way.
Delgado's lab has proof reliving memories reduces stress. During MRIs, his team mapped the brain activated while thinking of the past. Turns out those happy memories made the MRI less scary.
We actually measure their mood before they get into the experiment to the end of the experiment. And a lot of the participants actually come out and they actually show an increase in mood. So they feel better after this experience. They like recalling these memories. It is a nice thing. And then we also find that the greater the increases in mood, the more you tend to activate these brain areas that are involved in positive emotions and reward. These would be something like the striatum that receives dopamine that gives us that little boost and makes us feel good.
So while living in the past is probably not a good idea, reliving the past, the research is pretty clear, can be just the boost you need to make your present more pleasant. When we come back, June 1st was National Cancer Survivors Day. What you need to know, whether you've had cancer or not. I'm not much for clubs, but there's a club I'm a member of that I didn't choose to join. It's the Cancer Survivors Club. According to the American Cancer Society, 18 million of us have survived a bout with cancer. Maybe you're not part of that club, but 54% of us have an immediate family member who has been diagnosed with cancer, so you may be a part of that club. June 1st was National Cancer Survivors Day, a day meant to celebrate those who've survived a bout with cancer. The woman I want you to meet is someone who has not only survived cancer, Kathy Giusti has beaten cancer twice.
Kathy Giusti was a young mom and businesswoman when she received a staggering diagnosis. She had multiple myeloma, a blood-borne cancer with no treatments, little research to find any, and a life expectancy of maybe 4 years.
Because I kept a journal from the day I was diagnosed. But in the very beginning of the journal, I'm writing to Nicole, who's 18 months old, in the hopes that she might remember me because I'm only going to live 3 years. And in there, I'm saying, I will never get you a brother or sister, which broke my heart because I have an identical twin. I'll never know where you went to school. I'll never know who you married. And then,
desperate to fight what seemed inevitable, Kathy and her sister founded the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation to provide money for promising research. Today, there are more than 60 FDA-approved drugs and drug combinations keeping patients like Kathy alive. Incredibly, Kathy was later diagnosed with breast cancer, and she's beaten that too. I can think of no one better to tell the rest of us what we need to know about confronting and surviving cancer than Kathy Giusti. With June 1st being Cancer Survivor Day, what does that mean to you as a two-time survivor of cancer?
well, I love the fact that we're celebrating cancer survivors because there are, as you said, 18 million survivors out there. And I think the whole point of National Cancer Survivors Day is to recognize anybody who has been on the journey. And it's whether you're on treatment or off treatment, you're in remission or you're not in remission. And it's a reminder to us all that after you so-called ring the bell, meaning you've supposedly completed treatment, that your journey's not yet over. You're still going to live with it. And the things that really affect the survivors are things like being scared of a recurrence, and it gives them fear, anxiety. The second are the side effects. A lot of our side effects just never go away. And that's a huge challenge for us. And then the third is sometimes financial toxicity or worry about insurance. All these areas are really important for us to keep talking about.
You wrote a wonderful book this past year called Fatal to Fearless, and it really is the cookbook for anyone who is approaching cancer, either as someone who's been diagnosed or the caregiver or family member of that person. Can you tell me from the patient perspective, what are the three most important things that you think a patient who wants to advocate for themselves needs to be sure to do as soon as possible?
Well, I wrote the book in three parts. One was for a newly diagnosed patient. The second was if you were in the thick of treatment. And the third was if you were a survivor. And I would say, just picking one from each of those, in the very first part, when you're newly diagnosed, it is finding the right medical team. It's not as easy to do as you might think. You want to get to an academic center. You may not be able to find one nearby, then which community center. So that gets really challenging. The second part is when you are in the thick of treatment, understanding that it's really hard to do that on your own. You need to reach out to not just your medical team, but a caregiving team, someone who's going to help you research the drugs and understand them, help you to understand how you're going to take those drugs, and be beside you as you go through it. In today's world,
Who is that person? Who's that caregiving team?
it's almost always your partner or a child, someone in your family, but a lot of people don't have that, and it's okay. Then they have to bring in a friend, and sometimes, sadly, somebody's going to have to reach out and find a volunteer at their church or somewhere else to help them. And then the third area was, in the survivorship side. And what I really focus on there is making sure that just because you're done, you still need to make sure that somebody's continuing to check you out. Your immune system's not the same anymore. You might need to get to a dermatologist for skin checks more often. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong that you still need to be monitored. So in that situation, I say primary care doctor, talk to the navigators at foundations or survivorship offices in the hospitals, or there are even navigation companies that are, literally out there working with the insurance companies that can help you too.
Another thing that I know you talked about in the book that I think is really important for the patient is you say there's really two doctors that you need to have. You need to have that person at the research center who's cutting edge, who knows what's going on, but then you want the execution doctor, not the guy who's going to kill you, but the guy who's going to execute the treatment plan.
Yeah, so I always say to people, like they recognize that when you have cancer and you get to an academic center, on average, the outcomes are about 20% better. But again, like an academic center, there's three ways to think of this. Like a cancer center is MD Anderson, a Memorial Sloan Kettering, or Dana-Farber. All they do is cancer. And then there are academic centers, which are affiliated with institutions. They do a lot of teaching. They have residents and interns. And then third are the community centers. So it's not always easy to get to an academic center. 70% of cancer care is done at the community. So what you want to do is maybe you see your doctor at the community, but go get a second opinion at the academic center. At least get your name in that registry at the academic center. And that doctor may be willing to work with your community oncologist so that that community oncologist delivers your care, but the academic center helps to oversee it. The reason is they have a lot more in terms of understanding the new drugs and clinical trials.
What's your view on this? How much do you want to write down questions and ask your caregiver when you go in for those appointments? I remember years ago, there was a sofa company in New York, and their tagline was "An educated consumer is our best customer." I don't know if all doctors appreciate that. Some seem to bristle. What's your take on that?
So my take on it is definitely come in and ask your doctor questions, but ask them the right question. I think where patients need advice is, what questions are you asking at the front desk? If you have questions about scheduling and where the offices are, because sometimes there's other offices besides the one you're standing in, that's at the front desk. If you have questions about when you're going to get treatment, somebody to actually put a calendar together for you, that's often the physician assistant or the nurse who's helping. by the time you're getting to your doctor, you really want to know, like, what are we doing next for me? If I relapse, what am I going to do next? Or if this treatment doesn't work, what am I going to do next? If I have side effects, are they permanent or are they going to go away? Can we change the dose? So patients have a lot of questions. It's fine to bring your questions into the doctor. Bring the right questions into the doctor.
And what advice do you have for family members? As someone who's gone through this journey twice, I know your husband, Paul, he is the most amazing human, and your son and daughter, Nicole and David, are just incredible. You've got a terrific family network that I know has held you up through all of this. What advice do you have for those people?
I think for the caregivers, the most important thing to know is it takes a toll on them. And I don't think the patients realize until way after everything that they were sacrificing, because I hate to say it, but in some ways, especially in the thick of treatment, cancer seems to trump all. And
Mhm.
so, when you're living with cancer for a longer period of time, you have to really understand what caregivers do you need to do what, and make sure that you're building the team as broadly as you can. If it can be a friend that's going to go pick your children up from school, let them do that. If it's somebody else that's making meals, let them do that. Decide what each person on the team is going to be really good at, and let them focus on that. But don't give one partner everything,
Mm,
because at the end of the day, it's just too much of a burden. It wears them
yeah,
down. And now you've got a weary patient and a weary caregiver,
yeah.
and it just doesn't go well. It just doesn't.
One thing that I really love about your book is you talk about, in the list of things you need to plan for, you need to plan to survive. A lot of
Yeah.
people hear cancer and they think that's it, it's over. And your message is no, you need to plan to live.
So many years have gone by, but just write it down. Like, write down what your wishes are for the future. I wrote about this in my journal all the time. I knew how desperately I wanted her to have a sibling.
Mm.
And you just keep plowing ahead, and then something happens, and it's decades later, and you sit in that moment and say, I cannot believe this just happened.
You know
And
what, Kathy? I'm thinking of a Bible verse when you say that. It's Habakkuk 2:2. And it says, write the vision.
yeah,
And that's exactly what you did.
it's so true. You really do want to do that. And I say that to everybody. And because when you're in that moment, the only time in your life that you have to think about what you really, really want is when you're facing your mortality. And so when you get that diagnosis, it's the one moment where you're sitting there saying, oh my God, like, there's an element of what do I need, which is, oh my, who's going to take care of the kids? Who's going
Mhm.
to write the will? Who's going to do these things? But there's the element of what you want. What do you want? And for some people, it's like, I want to get promoted. I want to keep working. I want to travel. And you have to write it down and say, what is the new goal? What is the new you? And
That's
then put it on your computer and make sure you're striving for it every day.
last question. We live in an age of incredible disinformation. Could you please tell me and everyone who sees this interview where you believe the best source for solid information if you're confronting cancer is?
I'm so glad you're asking this question because it's coming up left and right. So, just to give you an example, I feel like for myself, I am a cancer curator. I wake up every morning, I'm barraged in everything that's cancer. And I have to sort through it myself so that when I'm speaking on social media or other places, I'm making sure I'm using accredited resources, things that I trust. So, the things that I trust, and I have my own list, tend to be the medical groups. Like, right now, in the middle of this, is the American Society of Clinical Oncology annual meeting. I'm watching every bit of it over the weekend. And so they do beautiful, beautiful work. American Society of Hematology does beautiful work. But then I also look to see what the top rated foundations are doing, like the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, Longevity, the Prostate Cancer Foundation, the American Cancer Society. So I'll use those resources too. And then I have my list of academic centers and doctors that I think are extraordinary, and then the National Cancer Institute. And I constantly put this together. I can't tell you how much work it is to just have a list of who I trust for me to be actually able to share their information. Look at the American Cancer Society, look at the National Cancer Institute. These are very easy resources for patients to get to.
And the information they provide is solid.
It's legitimate. Yeah, it is.
And remember those journals Kathy started at the beginning of her cancer journey? There's something
In
to
the
writing
past
it down.
year, of course, like she gets married. I know exactly who she married, and he's wonderful. I know exactly where she went to school and who gave the toast at her wedding but her brother.
Still ahead, from surviving cancer to dealing with one of life's little annoyances.
What do you do when your friends tell you they're coming over and you just found out that the white wine is not cold? This is an easy fix. All you gotta do is take your bottle of wine, take some paper towels, wet them up, squeeze a little bit of the water out, and then wrap the paper towel around the bottle of wine. And you're gonna put this in the freezer. You're gonna put this in, and you leave it in for just like 5 to 7 minutes. That's gonna chill it down perfectly. If you put that bottle in without the paper towel around it, there's a good chance you forget about it, the bottle would explode, and you won't have all that great wine to drink. So we'll come back in a minute. Okay, let's see how that bottle of wine, ooh, it's cold. It's cold, and we are happy about that. Okay, it worked. Let me go take this off. So what you might want to do is actually just use water to get the paper towel off, because it's otherwise going to shred and stuff like that. So now you have a nice cold bottle of white wine. And the only possible thing to do is open it. I'm going to get it off now. There, that's good, right? Love that sound. Friends aren't here yet. I gotta make sure the wine is cold. Works every time. That's Inside Today for now, but before I go, a thought, courtesy an old newspaper cartoonist by the name of Frank A. Clark, who's quoted as saying, "If you can find a path with no obstacles, it probably doesn't lead anywhere." The truth is, most of the good things in life do come with a little bit of challenge. Today we talked about memories, and we talked about how reliving past positive experiences can actually help you be more resilient, that recalling those past happy memories can give you not only an emotional boost, but help you get through tough challenges, scary moments like turbulence on a plane. I'm willing to bet that somewhere in your house you've got some trophies. You probably didn't learn a whole lot when you won those trophies, but talk about the defeats in your life. And I'll bet you'll realize you learned volumes in getting through those tough times. And can there be a tougher time than for a doctor to say, you have cancer, it's a form of cancer for which there's no cure, and oh, by the way, no one seems to be doing research into it. Talk about an obstacle. But Kathy Giusti, when confronted with that exact obstacle, did not collapse. She rose to the challenge. She spearheaded research into her own form of cancer, and in the process, changed the way cancer research is done around the world. I don't think I'll ever do anything as monumental as what Kathy Giusti has done. But what I can do is I can share her story, and in the process, I hope, encourage you and inspire you to know that life's obstacles aren't always obstructions. Sometimes they're opportunities to grow. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll see you soon.